Hello everyone, this video is about the narcissist and how they manipulate all those around them. Be it the grand overt ones who are full of charm, that charm their friends and family into doing things for them, or the covert ones who will guilt trip more than charm to get people to do stuff for them. Although narcissistic personality disorder is on a spectrum, most narcissists will use both tactics at some point. They will also have dirt on others and use that as a threat against them to meet their own needs. If you take a look back over time, you might remember a few things that at the time didn't quite add up because of the stories that they tell others and how they manipulate people and situations. It's incredibly hard to see. The narcissist always talks the way out of any situation, yet when you start putting them all together, you can see how low they will stoop. Some narcissists come from families of narcissists. This one is about my ex-narcissist and a few manipulative things with family that I don't believe any of my ex-narcissist family were narcissists themselves. They all seemed like happy, normal people, whatever normal is. Part of getting over a narcissistic or a toxic relationship is radical acceptance of, because of the love bombing and the manipulation and the word salad and everything else, the things that you wish you'd have stood your ground on and the things you wish you'd have spoke up on but didn't, and you have to get through accepting that to move forward. So my narcissist parents, to me, I think they're loving, amazing people. They've always been very kind to me. I know some narcissists have parents who will team up with their children on the manipulation. With my ex-narcissist, the narcissist manipulated their parents. To me, the story was told how their dad wasn't there for them growing up, so they looked up to their uncle and spent most of the time with their uncle. How the mother was always far too busy with the sister who had issues and didn't like going to school. How the sister, who I'd met and was a lovely, amazing, kind person, actually didn't like going to school when she was younger. So the story did match up. The narcissist would say she was selfish and all about herself and her own needs. She never came across that way to me. I know a lot of narcissists do have siblings that are on their side. Even if the siblings witness something, they will turn a blind eye to protect the narcissist. My ex-narcissist sibling was lovely. I think she knew in herself that something wasn't quite right with the narcissist, but again, no one truly knows what wasn't right with them. The narcissist would fall out with their parents, often months of silent treatment. To me, the story was told it was because they wasn't family orientated. They don't see the grandchildren enough. They spend too much time on the sister's child and not theirs. Yet, the sister's child lived round the corner. We live 7 miles away. Thinking back, when the narcissist was supposed to have their eldest son often stayed with the grandparents. They wouldn't speak to the grandparents when they moved across the road. When we split up and the narcissist moved across the road, the parents got the silent treatment. Who knows what the parents actually said? No doubt the narcissist felt criticism in some way. Who knows what excuse the narcissist said to the new partner? Probably some victim play. Yet again, when the narcissist split up with the new partner and they wanted me to take them back and I wouldn't, they went to eat humble pie, as they put it, and used the parents. They went to talk to the parents again because they needed a roof over their head. No other reason than that. The narcissist would often say to people, you know what I'm like. And the narcissist family would often say to people, you know what he's like. The grandparents came regular to visit the grandchildren when we'd split up and even offered to help out. They did make the comment that they would always be there for the children, which, if only they knew that, yes, the narcissist would be there for the children when it was for the narcissist's own gain, and then they'd drop them again when the children were of no use. The uncle and cousins, the narcissist would absolutely slate these people. They were in debt, they were scrubbers, they were spongers, taking the wages off their own children. Looking at the narcissist now, this was their own insecurities passed on to others, as the narcissist was simply jealous and envious of the closeness of their aunts and uncles and the cousins' family. Their family was close and happy. Yet, on the other hand, the narcissist would go on about how great the uncle was to them growing up. So it never kind of fully matches up what they're telling you. The cousins, the narcissist could ignore for months on end, not particularly giving them silent treatment, just not bother with them. And then they'd get in touch when they needed something, a lift, a help with something. One cousin in particular, the narcissist actually used the cousin's father's death. The narcissist uncle that the narcissist said they'd spent so much time with, they used that to form a greater bond, to go binging on drugs, and the cousin was paying for it all. Yet to me, they would slate them, saying that they can afford it, so they can afford to treat the narcissist, and they deserve to be treated from the cousin after all they'd done for them. The narcissist hadn't really done anything for them. They were using them over one of the worst possible things that could happen to somebody. They would tell me that the cousin's partner wouldn't work, was a sponge who bled the cousins dry, claimed they stole from the benefits, that the partner just used cocaine also, that they'd had affairs. This was more than likely all lies, as the narcissist was just jealous of them, and also the divide and conquer, so that we couldn't fill each other in on stories and figure out what the narcissist was doing. At the narcissist's nephew's first birthday, the narcissist went nuts at our 2-year-old child. Why? Because the child was shy, yet none of the narcissist family spoke up to him about the behaviour towards the child. Only I did. And all I said was something along the lines of, I'll have him, he's just a bit shy with all these people. To the narcissist, the child wasn't performing how the narcissist wanted him to, which caused the narcissist great criticism. And of course, because I spoke up, I caused the narcissist great criticism too. So for the rest of the day, there were sly digs hurled towards me in front of everybody. The narcissist's son, well, one minute the narcissist would spoil them rotten, buying them expensive gifts. The narcissist looked like the doting parent, taking them to football. This was often just to look the part and play the part, and then use it to gain attention from single parents that were around, as they dated most of them. Yet, the more I knew the narcissist, the more I realised often the narcissist would get someone else to take the child to training. Who knows what excuse they used for the child? A lot of the time they left the child for sleepovers at the grandparents. Those grandparents that weren't family orientated, often actually looked after that child. Again, they probably told different excuses to anybody and everybody around them. The narcissist would slate the child's other parent to the child, but in subtle ways. Once when the child spoke up to defend their other parent, the narcissist got angry. The child didn't defend them again. I wrongly assumed this was all the hurt that the crazy ex had caused. Of course, the story they told me was how the crazy ex had cheated, taken the house off them that they owned, which they actually didn't own. It was a council property. Excuse me. They had apparently stopped contact with the child, to which the narcissist had to take them to court. How true this is, I don't know, or whether it was just the victim play from the narcissist. Only the narcissist truly knows that, and the narcissist's ex. They said how the crazy ex had locked the child in a bedroom for days, and the neighbours had called them, so they went round to kick the door down. There's probably another reason why the narcissist actually did this, but in case the story got out that they'd kicked the door down on their ex's house, they had to get in there with a story of their own first, of what a hero they were. Things went missing from the house, and money went missing from the house, and the narcissist actually blamed their own child to me, which it only went missing when their child was there. Who knows what the narcissist said to the child, but it was basically divide and conquer, because the child was spending so much time with me and filling me in on stuff that the narcissist didn't want me to know. They had to put a stop to that. So their child went from spending all their time with me and talking to me to hating me and no longer filling me in on anything. When things first went missing, they didn't speak to the child for a week. They used the silent treatment on their own child. In fact, there was always one night a week the child didn't come over, and I'd said that I wanted to speak to the narcissist about some messages I'd seen that evening. What did the narcissist do? They used the child and brought them up to avoid any talking. They put the child in the middle of a situation, and it wasn't a nice environment to be around, let alone to bring a child into it. I would ask them to let me know in the beginning when the child was coming so that I could cook extra tea, and of course in that golden period they did. Then afterwards they just started randomly turning up and then moan at me for not having tea ready because I'm supposed to be a mind reader, which made me feel bad and put me in grumpy moods. Who knows what excuse they used with the child. 2 of my children used to share a bedroom and one had a child on their own, which when we first met I wanted to include that child, so I brought some bunk beds and we sorted it out which 2 were sharing with which 2. But the narcissist would cause argument after argument how my 3 should share a room together whilst theirs should have a room of their own. I did see the narcissist's point of view as no, they were not full siblings, but I explained countless times the boys are ranging from 12 to 8. They get on. They did fight like lion cubs, but they did get on. So there will be no favouritism, and if the children want to switch and swap and change, then that's fine. They can sort that out amongst themselves, but not one of them is having a room of their own because it's unfair on the others. Once, when the child was around 12 years of age, the child didn't get them a gift or a card for a special day, which resulted in great criticism towards the narcissist and the child getting the silent treatment until they grovelled and apologised to the narcissist. The child now actually has distanced themselves and gives the narcissist the silent treatment. So unfortunately, it's a horrible situation, but karma does truly come round and hit. And from what I gather, the child is now quite happy in life and is very close to that ex and seems to be really doing well for themselves despite everything the narcissist put them through. So that does cheer me up a lot when I think about that. Some family members don't see it. They rely on them, trusting them, only to be disappointed and never truly understanding why. Some family members love them and are confused by how the narcissist treats them. Some narcissists change addresses with great speed and some change jobs rapidly, causing financial and emotional upheaval on the family. Narcissists simply use all family members for their own game. They might not like who they are, yet when something's going their way, the narcissist will be all over them. And when it's not going their way and the person's not conforming to their demands or their needs, they'll cut them off only to pick them back up when they're of some use to them again. Narcissists go viral on destruction, destroying families. Some family members, including small children, may know there is something very wrong with the narcissist, yet they'll not know what. They'll keep their emotional distance. Some children do just know. They're not good to be around. Usually the scapegoat child, this one. And as soon as they can, they'll spend long periods away from the narcissist. Even if they don't know why, they'll hide in the rooms, dive into books, or they'll find an adult that they can turn to for love and warmth, which I now believe the narcissist's eldest child turned to the grandmother for that love and warmth. Some family members and children go along with the narcissist and never get to lose that psychological connection, which is just devastating. The golden family member that will always stick up for them, always cover for their lives and the manipulation, and that person goes through a life of pain. A narcissist is a great actor. They mimic people's emotions. They don't feel the same emotions as others. They suck everything out of people, leaving those behind, left with trauma bonding and anxiety and CPTSD. A narcissist will lie. They will tell half-truths. They will exploit people simply for their own gains. Narcissists discard people when they're no longer meeting the narcissist's needs, whether this is cutting them out or just going quiet on them for a while. Narcissists have an extremely complicated relationship with their parents. Sometimes the parents are narcissists too, but not all. Some may smother the narcissist with love, some may abandon the narcissist. Others just don't understand their narcissistic child or why they act the way they do. Narcissists just manipulate anything and everything and anyone, and as soon as you've figured out that they are abusive, you've just got to get out. If you can, no contact. If you've got children with them, grey rock. Remember, do not react to a narcissist. That is what they want, your reactions. Only respond to the question asked. Do not go off subject. This is if you've got children with them and you need, well, not need to, but you have to communicate about the children. So just respond to the question asked. Do not get swayed off subject. Stick to the grey rock. There is a video on this. Please remember that these videos are just for advice, information on what I have been through and information on what I've found out on the internet over the last couple of years. If any of the information does help you, please subscribe and please share to get the awareness out there. What we need is the awareness out there so people can not join in with their games before they even start them. Thank you very much for listening. Bye.